welcome to my 2026 gear guide. If you're new to the channel, my name's Elliott and you're watching Rickety Ski Reviews. Today, I'm gonna go through, I've never done a gear guide before. This is totally uncharted water, but I wanted to do it myself because there are a ton of other places that do gear guides, but most of them either take money from the companies directly or they're paid for the product. I am totally independent. I do not get paid by any ski brand. I am sent skis from some brands and some not. None of these Atomics were sent, but like Goggle will send me used demo skis, so full transparency there, but I wanted to do my part and try to make a gear guide for you guys who are going into this year looking to buy gear. If you want to support this kind of independent channel, I will have affiliate links down in the description. But as always, you know, I'm just here trying to help people out, give my honest opinion without having any money strings attached to me. So without further ado, we're gonna talk about these in main chapters. So I will have those timestamped and they will have kind of headers, but we're gonna be talking about, daily driver all mountain skis, short radius skis, crud cutters. I'm gonna be talking about light powder skis and powder skis. Then from there, we're gonna go and talk about ski boots, ski boot liners, jackets, base layers, goggles, helmets, and poles. So we're gonna go all the way through. There'll be chapters so you can kind of skip around to what's relevant to you, but I want to help people who are looking to buy gear not waste their hard-earned money. Skiing is very expensive and there's nothing worse than spending a ton of money on something that doesn't suit you or doesn't work for your need. Now for the daily driver all mountain skis, where they're kind of coming in between 88 and 100 millimeters, there have been a ton of changes going into 2026. You have the Atomic Maverick line, where they have gone from the 88 Ti, 95 Ti, and 100 Ti. The 100 Ti is gone, and now you just have the 88 CTI and the 96 CTI. Now you think, oh, this is gonna be pretty much the same platform with different material, kind of like they've done in previous generations with the Atomic Vantage. No, this design is much different. This is much more kind of free ride oriented, easier to initiate turns, much more forgiving turns, but with that trade-off, you get less power in and out of the turns. For me, I didn't love the change, but I get what they're doing. They're making the Atomic Maverick more approachable for a wider variety of skiers, and I think that makes sense. They don't have a ton in their lineup for Atomic for those kind of easy to initiate turns, so they've kind of adapted the Atomic Maverick to suit that need. Now, I don't love it, but from a standpoint as far as like covering a large population of skiers, it does make sense to me. The score went down, I think, from like a 9.7 to a 9.1, but it's still like a top tier ski. So that's one big change. You also have big changes from the Headcore lineup. I haven't gotten a chance to scan those, but they are on the way. The Headcore 93, Headcore 90, the whole lineup has basically been done anew, and that's a really exciting change. The Salomon QSTs have changed. I have not been able to get my hands on those. I'm not sure how much they changed. I know they went from the Salomon QST 92 and the Salomon QST 98 to just a Salomon QST 94, Salomon QST 100, and Salomon QST 106, then you have the QST blank, etc., etc. I'm not sure about those changes. I haven't had a chance to get my hands on them. I'm a little bit skeptical of how much change there's gonna be, but that is a big change in the industry. You also last year had changes to the Völkl Mantra 88. They have the new Völkl Mantra 84, which is really exciting. I feel like that kind of serves a place for people who want to be more down the file line and just have like a more aggressive carving ski, but they still like the Mantra 88, so that's exciting to see. The Mantra 88 is getting some changes, which was previously the Kendo. They changed the name, but didn't change the ski, and then going into this year, they are in fact changing the ski. I am supposedly getting a pair of those, so very eager to test those out. You also had the Elan Ripstick from last year change. I believe the Elan Ripstick 96 and 96 Black both changed last season. You can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. Last year, we also had a huge, probably the update that had the biggest impact on me and the ski that had the biggest impact on me last year was that Stokely Monero AR changed in 2025. Phenomenal. Such a nice ski. I like the old Monero, there's nothing wrong with it. But just like the access to different turns that you get a little bit more of, the timing on the Monero AR in 2025 is one of the best skis I've ever put on my feet, so I was really excited about that. We also got updates to the Monero AX last year in 2025, which was exciting. I hadn't skied on it before, but I liked the current gen. Again, all these skis I'll have full reviews, so if you're feeling like I'm kind of breezing through things, there's much more content out there if you really want to get in the weeds and really critical on them. This year going into 2026, we're also getting a change to the Stokely Storm Rider 88. I did get a few runs on those this spring. Luckily, it worked out just coincidentally that I had done my 2025 Storm Rider 88 review and then gotten on a pair of the 2026s out in Sun Valley with Meeting the Rep. And so I was maybe a week or two apart from trying both of them. The big changes just from an initial point, again, I'm gonna have a full review this winter, but my first impressions with those were, I thought the turn initiation was a lot easier on the new gen. It feels like it kind of has a lot more opportunity to kind of hook in the turn. It doesn't fight you as much as kind of the old Storm Riders I've had in the past. I'm very excited to see this Stokely Storm Rider kind of serve a different audience than the Monterey R. I feel like before there was a little bit of overlap between those two series of skis, and it's nice to see the Storm Rider kind of stand out on its own more. Again, those were just my first impressions. I'll have a full review, but I am excited about the Storm Rider 88 change. I think it's gonna serve a lot more people than it had in the past. We also saw an update in 2025 to the Atomic Bent 100 and Bent 120. It kind of feels like ancient history at this point, but those were big changes because Atomic kind of rolls their stuff out early, so people were testing those skis in 2024. But you are getting a better Bent 120 and a Bent 100. Bent 100 of the old 2024 and older, I really did not like. It just was too noodly. It didn't give you your energy back. The Bent 100 for 2025 is hugely improved. In my opinion, if you care about on-piste performance at all. Now, most people buying a Bent don't maybe care about that, but for you, the consumer, getting a 2025 Bent 100 or Bent 120, in my opinion, is a much better buy than 2024 and older, if you care about that. If you like soft skis, maybe your mileage will vary. Also, last year we had the introduction of the Black Crowes Octo, which feels like a long time ago, but it did come out in 2025. It's right on the border. I'll probably talk about that more in the short radius section, but for me, it was one of my favorite skis of the year. That is a shorter radius ski, but does add a lot of versatility, and I could see it kind of being in people's daily driver options. It was essentially a more carving focused, less freestyle version of the Black Crowes Mirrors Core, but again, that will come up in the next section. Now, that all being said, what would I recommend people buy as far as daily drivers? Well, again, it always depends on what you're kind of looking for. If I was recommending an intermediate to advanced skier who is looking for a ski that's easy to initiate a turn with, that is kind of easy to get going, you're kind of beyond that beginner ski, but you still have a couple parts of your turn you want to focus on. For me, I think a really easy suggestion is the Elan Ripstick 96 Green Edition. Again, I'm not, I paid for my own rental on that ski. I'm not paid by anyone. But that ski to me makes a lot of sense because of its asymmetrical shape. It really kind of gets you already locked and loaded and ready to start the turn. It also has pretty good diversity. You could go off trail, you could go into light amounts of powder if you're curious about it. As far as a daily driver goes, I feel like it's an awesome option for people who are trying to kind of get everything dialed in. They don't want to work really hard, or maybe you're a lighter skier and turn initiation can be difficult for whatever number of reasons, right? I think that there's a lot to love about that ski. It's got diversity, it's got easy turn initiation. I think that's a great suggestion. From there, if you're kind of stepped up beyond that, where you're starting to feel like, okay, the ski's a little easy for me, or I just want to be a little bit more involved in the turn. From there, you've got this Salomon Stance 90 right behind me. I think that is a nice step up where it's still giving you a lot of the diversity and a lot of the options of the Elan Ripstick 96, but it's going to allow you to be more involved in the turn. Relative to the other skis, you know, it's still on the kind of lighter end of turn initiation. It's not hard to get going. Some of the drawbacks, it's not the dampest. There's some weird stuff with the top sheets kind of separating, but all in all, the Salomon Stance 90 really, to me, feels like in line with the Elan Ripstick 96. If you're like, you know what, this Elan Ripstick 96 is just a little too easy for me. I want something where I'm gonna have to put a little bit more power in it, but I can get more energy out of the turn. Stepping up to that Salomon Stance 90 makes a ton of sense to me. Salomon Stance is so funny because it's really kind of been in the shadow of a lot of the other Salomon like lines. The QST just completely eclipses it. But for a lot of people, the Stance makes a ton of sense. It's great for carving. It's got, again, enough diversity. It's got a pretty easy turn initiation, but in my opinion, if you're kind of going from that Elan Ripstick 96 and you're feeling fed up, check out the Salomon Stance 90. Another big update I didn't mention, but unfortunately it doesn't look like we're getting any more Peak skis. Peak skis, for me, the Peak 88 was a phenomenal ski, but unfortunately not really an option. And you know, you could buy a pair used, I guess, but I don't know that there's gonna be much in the way of support for warranties and things like that. From the Stance 90, then you could start looking at things like the Bent 90. I feel like bang for your buck, that's a phenomenal option. Bent 90 is very affordable. You can usually find them in the off season for around 400 bucks. They retail still on the lower side. They are not the most carving focused ski. So if you get any kind of chatter, beware. It's kind of the thread through for all of those bent. Same for the Bent 100. That would be even closer to like a light powder ski. But Bent 90, if you're looking for an affordable option, it does carve decently well. It does no titanal, it's just wood, but it does allow for a nice smooth arch turn, especially in my opinion. I like it mounted back from the factory recommended. Check out the full review for my thoughts on mounting point. But if you have soft snow, it is a decent, affordable, smooth turn that you can kind of massage out of it. From there, you can look at the Atomic Maverick 88 CTI. Again, with that update, it is a little bit softer on the tips. It's a little bit easier to initiate. They've kind of got a more aggressive tip splay than previous Maverick generations, but there's no denying it's a smooth turn. It feels good. You're just not getting as much power as you got out of the 88 Ti, but you're getting more ease of access, easier turn initiation. You've got better flow. The Maverick 88 CTI does make a lot of sense. And again, if you're kind of stepping up from that Stance and Bent and wanting to get a little bit more focused on carving, that's a pretty good option. If you can find the previous generation Atomic Maverick 95 Ti's, I see those floating around on deals sometimes. I think that's still a phenomenal option. I still really like my Atomic Maverick 88 Ti's, but if you're looking for a ski that is a little bit more in line with that previous Atomic Maverick, as far as like power you're getting out of the turns, a pretty good option is the Meyer Wrangler. It's a little bit more off-trail oriented. I like it a little bit more in some of the deeper powder just with that shape, but the Meyer Wrangler is an awesome option. It's not got as easy of a turn initiation, but it's also not sacrificing as much in the power department. So Meyer is a small independent brand. I think they're making awesome skis. You can get custom top sheets. They're made ethically, they're made environmentally friendly. So go check them out if you're looking for something a little bit more in vein of the previous Atomic Maverick. The other ski I find myself recommending a lot for people who want a ski that's pretty accessible is the Stokely Stormrider 88. It has that kind of, you know, standard Stokely feel of smoothness while still having a pretty easy turn initiation, and it's gotten easier over the years. So I think if you're looking for an accessible, smooth Stokely, the Stormrider 88 is an awesome option. You can also check out the Stokely Stormrider 95. I like those as well, though I have not tried the 2026, so I guess take that for what it's worth. But the Stormrider 88 is such an easy to initiate option. Whereas the Monero, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is so like dialed in and you can get such a phenomenal turn out of it. The Stormrider 88 allows you to get a lot of that smoothness and good feeling without having to have your timing be exactly precise and without forcing you to kind of be on terrain where you can set up your line exactly how you want. The Stormrider 88 is an awesome option. Again, if you're kind of going from that Atomic Maverick 88 CTI, but wanting more power and wanting an accessible ski, I think that's a phenomenal option for daily drivers and definitely worth checking out. They are more expensive, but I would say that there are certain ski brands I've seen in the past where they're really expensive, but you're paying for like a top sheet of some art house brand over a normal ski. In this case, Stokely, you are getting a high performance ski. You are getting a quality product. You have to decide whether or not that's in your budget or reasonable for you. But as far as value, there is value there. They are nice, well-made skis. And I have found, like, I've had a pair that of the old Stormrider 88s that I had for over 5 years, and they held up phenomenally well. There is value there, but it has to fit your needs. If you're only skiing 10 days a year, I'm not sure that you're getting the full value there. Just food for thought. Some other great options for daily drivers I find suggesting a lot, especially if you have some of that heavier wet snow in the spring or you like a very distinct ski style. That is the Volkl Mantra 88. Again, this is for 2025, 2026, I will still have to test and talk about. And the Mantra 84. Volkl has a very distinct feel with that Mantra line where the turn initiation kind of happens directly underfoot, which is good because it allows you to kind of throw the ski on steeper pitches and have it just grab right underfoot, while also allowing you to massage the big open radius turns. I would say as far as like dampness goes, if you care about dampness, you care about kind of momentum through a turn, I have yet to find something that does it as well as the Vogel Mantra 88 while also giving you turn diversity. The Mantra 84 is very similar to the Mantra 88. It's just a little bit more down the hill. It's gonna kind of carry down the fall line a little bit more. But the trade-off is that your time edge to edge is quicker and you can get kind of a more responsive turn initiation going and you can kind of time things a little bit quicker. Your mileage may vary. I like the Mantra 84. I think for former racers, the Mantra 84 is an awesome option. Whereas the Mantra 88 just feels more accessible and got more diversity. So as far as I'm concerned, the Mantra 88 or the old Kendo is an awesome daily driver. I think it's giving you a ton of value. It has really fun turns. I was grinning ear to ear on those. But I would say that the Mantra 84 and the 88 are definitely for experienced skiers. If you are somebody who's completely new to the sport and you are feeling like you can't kind of load up the ski yet, look at some of those other options. The Mantra 84 though, if you can load up the turn and you're looking for a rewarding carving ski and a damp ski and a smooth ski and just something that's really fun and you feel confident in your skiing, the Mantra 88 is an awesome option and I think a phenomenal daily driver. And the Mantra 84 is just kind of a more serious down the line version of that. Some other decent options, though I feel like they're a little bit more specific to what you want, is the Castle MX88. It's a total spitfire, the turn nation, it's fast, but it's not got a lot in the way of dampness, so if you get kind of firm snow underneath, I do feel like it gets pinged around a little bit. It wasn't my favorite, but I can see why for certain people they would absolutely love that ski. Same for the Renown Endurance 88. On good snow, on like well-groomed corduroy, I felt everything. It feels so smooth, the turns feel phenomenal. But similar to that Castle, if you get on snow that has not been well maintained or is bumpy, you feel, again, everything under your feet. So I like both of those skis, but they have drawbacks and I feel like they're a little bit more niche. But I do want to mention them. As far as daily drivers, some other good options for people who are looking for kind of a travel ski where you could take this and have a pretty safe bet on any day. This could be its own category ski altogether. You've got things like the Salomon QST 98, which is now the Salomon QST 100, I guess. And you've got the Black Crow's Justice was kind of my favorite ski. I skied those in France for like 3 days and got them on groomers and powder and was so blown away by how good those feel. They will get kind of pinged around, so if you find yourself going somewhere with really firm snow, maybe look at other options because they don't have a ton in the way of dampness. But the tip shape allows them to float really well in powder. The tip shape also like hooks up well into the turn. I kind of feel like that was, for me personally, a very distinct feeling and one of my top picks for kind of a safe bet travel ski. Additionally, you have the Blizzard Anomaly series. I wasn't as crazy about the 88, but I did like the 94. The 88, just to me, some of the tip shape and tail shape is overly aggressive and kind of drags as you come through the turn. But that being said, like for a demo ski or something that is broadly accessible to people, I can see why people like it. The Blizzard Anomaly 94 shape, however, made a lot more sense to me. It's got a smooth initiated turn. It's giving you solid carving. I'm not sure that it gives you a ton in the way of like off-trail performance, but certainly a decent option for a lot of people. And that Anomaly shape makes more sense to me in that width. The other option you've got that I really like and find myself suggesting a lot for people, if you want a safe bet, again, easy to travel with ski, the Blizzard Wrestler 10 is phenomenal. It's giving you, I'd say like if you're looking for something that kind of had equal stats, if you had like a stat hexagon, right? And like, okay, powder performance, yep. The Blizzard Wrestler would be like a perfect circle. It kind of is that perfect blend of everything where it's got decent carved turns, it's got good off-trail and powder performance, it's got decent dampness and decent like the smoothness kind of coming through that turn. That all being said, I wouldn't say it like stands out in any one direction, but for somebody who is looking for something that can perform the way they want in any given condition, it's hard to talk about good all-mountain skis without bringing up the Blizzard Wrestler 10. I can see why so many people like it. That being said, if you're looking for one category specifically that you're really focused on or that is a priority to you as a ski buyer, I would look at something else because there is almost certainly a ski that is going to be more focused on that than the Blizzard Wrestler 10. But They are nice skis, and it's hard to not mention them. Now, lastly, my recommendation if you are a power user, if you are somebody who is a big ski aficionado who wants the best performance for a daily driver for carving, in my opinion, there's no better option than the Stokely Monero AR. I think that as far as smoothness of being on edge and having the edge hold smooth, as far as dampness, as far as fun, snappy turns, as far as powerful turns, I have yet to have a better carving experience than the Stokely Monero AR. They also make a Stokely Monero AX, which is fairly similar as far as the broad spectrum of daily drivers, but the Monero AX is definitely shorter radius turns and more snappy and across the hill. That one was still a phenomenal ski, but for very different users. If you want open GS smooth turns and you really want to hammer in your carved turns, in my opinion, the Stokely Monero AR, which was changed in 2025, is absolutely phenomenal and the best carving experience I have yet to experience. As far as somebody who's a former racer who loves a dialed in powerful turn, they are definitely on the pricier end. This is not a product for somebody who likes to ski in passing here and there. This is definitely for a dedicated skier, for somebody who really loves carving, who feels like they have everything dialed in and they want the best performance. This is the best daily driver I could recommend right now. That being said, it doesn't have a ton of diversity. It is a very specialized tool. If your carving is not totally dialed in yet, I would, again, look at the Stokely Stormrider. It's gonna be a lot more forgiving for you. But if you feel like you've got everything dialed in and you've got your carving where you like it, if you get a chance, at the very least, try these. They are absolutely phenomenal. Does that mean that you can't have fun on any of the other skis I recommended? Absolutely not. There's a ton of fun to be had. Modern skis are so good. But if you're looking for the top performance of daily drivers that I found, I have yet to see something that carves as smoothly and is giving me a better turn than the Stokely Monero AR. That being said, if I'm on a crowded slope and there's a lot of people, it does not have those kind of short radius turns as accessible as the Monero AX, so that's a better option. If you don't like high top speeds, the Stokely Monero AX is gonna give you more of a slalom turn option. Both skis are phenomenal, but for a daily driver, I really do think this is a nice product. It's expensive, but the value is absolutely there. Buyer's guide for short radius skis. You've got a handful of options and it's kind of a newer sector of the industry, so there's a lot of changes going into this year. You've got the introduction of the DPS Carbon Pieced Work 79. I have a full review on that. Very exciting ski in my opinion. You've got the 2025 introduction of the Black Crow's Octo, which is kind of a companion almost to the Black Crow's Mirror's Core. You've got the Stokely Monero AX, which changed for 2025. So a lot to be excited about in terms of short radius skis. I really like this sector. I feel like it's really fun being able to have a ski that you can make aggressive, fun turns without having to have high top speeds. It makes a ton of sense to me as far as looking at smaller ski hills. It makes a ton of sense to me as people who are getting older, who wanna have fun without having to go really fast and go at dangerous speeds. So there's a lot of options, but those are kind of the big updates going into this year. Let's talk about some of my favorite options out there. Now, a lot of these brands are kind of coming at this ski category from different angles. You've got the DPS Carbon Pieced Work 79 coming at it as far as how much energy can you get in and out of the turn, how springy and kind of bouncy can each turn feel without having a ton in the way of smoothness, versus the Stokely Monero AX, where it's okay, you still need to have dampness, but we're also going to kind of try to give you that signature Stokely smoothness while getting a shorter radius turn. They're both coming at the same thing, but from very different angles and with very different results. For me, as far as middle of the road, you could look at the Black Crow's Octo. That was my ski of the year. I think as far as diversity, fun turn shape, it's got a lot to offer for everyone, but it is not going to be as specialized as either of those other two skis I mentioned, but it was my ski of the year last year, and I think for a lot of people having an easy to initiate turn while still having stability underfoot, the Black Crow's Octo makes a ton of sense. You also, if you are more freestyle oriented but still want those tight turns, you could look at the Black Crow's Mirror's Core. I just think the Black Crow's Mirror's Core, there are a lot of people who go, this is a great ski, but that tail being kind of splayed off, it doesn't give me as much platform to stand on. And if you don't care about freestyle skiing or jumps or the park, then the Black Crow's Octo makes a ton of sense. But if you are freestyle oriented, Mirror's Core is an excellent option. As far as if you're looking for a ski that is going to give you the most energy in and out of the turns. It's gonna be the most lively. I think the DPS Carbon Pieceworks 79 is extraordinarily exciting. DPS kind of specializes in those carbon skis. They are lightweight. The drawback there is that if you get on a hard surface, they can get pinged around more. I also found I had to play with the mounting point a little bit, but if you're looking for energy in and energy out and the most lively kind of quick fire ski for those short radius turns, the DPS Carbon Pieceworks 79 has that in spades. I would just make sure that if you are looking at the ski that you either have well-groomed runs with good corduroy or you have softer snow, because like I said before, there's not a ton of diversity there in that short radius ski. You are really in and out with your quick turns, and they will get chattered around if you end up on like boilerplate ice or just bad conditions. You're getting the best lively springy turn, but they will not accommodate bad snow conditions and they will get pinged around by firm snow. Both great options. One is much better for sure with chatter and dampness, but one is gonna be more lively with that energy. As far as like shorter radius turns, again, you've got those Elon Ripstick 96s that do kind of get into some of the shorter turns. You've also got the Atomic Redster Q series, which kind of dives closer into those shorter radius turns. They're kind of on the cusp of that. I like the Atomic Redster Qs, they have really, really easy turn initiation. They almost feel like they're on autopilot, but for me, they're just kind of in the middle somewhere, and I don't like the ski being totally on autopilot. I'd like to kind of play with the shape of my turn. Another option you've got out there is for like off-trail skiing. You've got the Meyer Mustang, which has shorter radius turns, but is a ton of fun off-trail, kind of in and out of the bumps. It's more of a specialty item, and especially for specialty items, you've got the Meyer Bangtail, which is more of like a cheater race ski, but definitely has very aggressive turns and is kind of on the border of that shorter radius ski. But again, more of a specialized tool that's more of like a smooth, forgiving cheater race ski. But again, they're kind of on the edge of this category, so I wanted to bring them up. But as far as me, if you're looking for something that's kind of in the middle, the Black Crowes Octo is easy to recommend. If you want lively energy in, energy out, DPS Carbon Pieceworks, and if you want that signature luxury smoothness, you're looking at the Stokely Monaro AX. All very exciting skis in this category. Up next, let's talk really briefly about light powder skis. These are skis that are good for light amounts of powder. You've got a handful of options, but the big changes that have happened, like I mentioned before, the 2025 Atomic Bent 100 changed. You've also got the introduction of the DPS Kaizen 105. And in 2025, you have the introduction of the Atomic Maverick 105 CTI. Now, as far as options that I really like, the big standout to me was the Vocal Blaze 104. I feel like that is so lightweight. It's easy to get in and out of the weeds. It's giving you so much performance for how lightweight they feel and how easy they are to kind of hop around. It's got that distinct kind of tip feeling when skis do start to pearl and you feel snow coming over. It's nice because it almost gives you the sensation of like a warning, like you're starting to get into snow that is a little bit too deep for the conditions. I think as far as like off-trail skiing for light powder skis, that was the big standout performer for me. The other options you've got is the Atomic Bent 100. If you're looking for a ski where you're just kind of wanting to dip your toes into powder, they're more center mounted, so they're easy to kind of go in the trees, like I mentioned before. I prefer those mounted a little bit back from the factory recommended. Again, I'll talk about that in the full review. They've got the Horizon Tech, which gives you a little bit more mileage in the off-trail powder. But for me personally, so I get why those are popular. The carving performance is okay there. I think the Bent 100 is a decent option and is a nice update in 2025 if you're looking at that. But again, with it being a light powder ski, it gets pinged around a little bit more probably than the Vocal Blaze 104. Another top pick, if you are not wanting to sacrifice as much in the carving department, you've got the Castle ZX 100. Those are definitely very lightweight skis and a ton of fun. That was another big standout for me, was that Kessel ZX 100. I like the way those kind of tips feel and how open they are. I didn't love the MX88 as much, but the design really comes to like that distinct Kessel tip really makes a lot more sense to me in the ZX100. That was one of my favorite kind of light powder skis. It could also kind of go in that category of a travel ski. It's right on the border. Those were phenomenal. The other ski I tried that I liked for some of the burlier skiers who kind of like to kind of plow through their turns is the Fisher Ranger 102. I wasn't blown away by it. It didn't really suit my style, but it is a nice option out there for lower amounts of powder. Again, that design just feels a little bit long in the tooth, but I can see a certain style of skier who just is like a dump truck coming through their turns, enjoying that Ranger 102 platform. For light powder skis, you've also got the DPS Kaizen 105. That again is like a very lightweight ski. The carving feels phenomenal. It's springy in and out of the turns. You can still kind of like carve with it, as well as being like very comfortable. The splay is so easy to make turns. The DPS Kaizen has been one of my favorite series as far as like comfort in the off-trail skiing. I feel like if you have knee, hip, joint issues, the DPS skis are very expensive, but they give you just such a comfortable and adjustable turn in the off-trail. They definitely are not like a designated powder with the Kaizen 105. I would say that this is a ski that does well in powder but can also carve. And similar to the Pieceworks, if you get them on firm snow, you will feel everything in your feet. They definitely get pinged around and thrown around more. But for a light amount of powder ski, it is definitely a nice option. You've also got the Maverick 105 CTI, which I would say sits square in the middle between light powder and full powder skis. Those are a little bit more aggressive than the Bent 100. They are not as like maneuverable. You can't make those quick, easy turns. They're much more down the fall line. They're also gonna be a bit more damp than the Bent 100. But that Horizon Tech is definitely working overtime to give you a wide variety and range of powder that you can ski on them, and is a decent light powder ski. I would say this one you could flip a coin whether it's light powder or full powder. But if you're somebody who doesn't want to sacrifice your strong downhill ski turns while also on a powder ski, the Maverick 105 CTI makes a ton of sense to me. As far as top pick for light powder ski, if you're looking for something that's going to do exactly this, you don't want it to be over on the carving side and don't want it to be over in the big powder side, the Vocal Blaze 104 is so much fun. I like it for the trees. I like it for the kind of powder hop turns. If you are looking for a ski that is going to be more on the carving side that makes really beautiful turns, that would be the DPS Kaizen 105. Just make sure that the snow is not too firm. And if you're looking for like a firm snow kind of powder ski, then you can look at the Atomic Maverick 105 CTI. If you're looking for like just I'm brand new to powder, you do have the Atomic Backland 102, which is so forgiving, so easy to kind of maneuver through. But as far as like a light powder ski that is just meant for like, 3 to 8 inches of snow, the Vocal Blaze 104 in my mind is kind of a standout ski in that category. But again, as always, it just depends on what you want. All right, and now let's talk about powder skis. Let's talk about industry changes going for powder skis for 2025 and 2026, and then we'll talk about some of my top picks and things I'm recommending frequently. The big changes you had for 2025, like I mentioned before, you had the improved wood for the Atomic Bent 100 and Bent 120. You also had the introduction of the Atomic Maverick 105 CTI and the Atomic Maverick 115 CTI. You also, in 2026, we are getting a new Salomon QST 106 kind of redesign. We also saw the introduction, I believe in 2025, correct me if I'm wrong, to the renowned Citadel 107. And I believe that 2025 was the year we got the DPS Kaizen 112, though feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not super confident on that. We, going into 2026, are getting a new head core powder ski. But now that we've covered those updates, let's talk about ski recommendations that I make for powder skis. Now, there are a ton of options out there. I would say if you are kind of just dipping your toes into powder skis, you've got a ton of options, like a really good, probably first powder ski if you're really reluctant off trail. Somebody like my wife who likes powder but is not going in it that often. There are some really nice options with like the Atomic Backland 102 that I talked about. You could also look at an Atomic Bent 100 where you're not totally sure how much snow you're comfortable with. You've also got, beyond that, the Headcore 105, which is really forgiving in the powder, but definitely has more range than those first two skis. And then beyond that, let's kind of talk about some of the like standout options, because there's a ton of powder skis out there, but there's some very distinct sectors within it. As far as my experience, this is probably my less experienced area, but I will try to speak to it because I do like powder skiing and, you know, I do have a lot of opinions about it. As far as like a powder ski I really like, bang for your buck, I like the Atomic Bent 110. You can find a ton of deals on it. It's very maneuverable, kind of in the bramble, and allows you to access more of those powder lines. I feel like the Horizon Tech, again, gives you more kind of flotation than you might expect. I typically, with all of those bent skis, like it mounted a little bit back, but again, if you're more freestyle oriented, that may change. It's also pretty forgiving on your legs. You're not gonna get hip issues or anything like that. I do like it a lot. I prefer the Bent 120 personally, but that's just kind of come as I've gotten more experienced. The Bent 120, in my opinion, does a little bit better with some of the heavier, thick snow. You're still getting kind of that easy to maneuver bent series while also kind of being able to come down the fall line more. I talked a little bit about that with the Atomic Maverick 105 CTI. I'm planning on testing the Maverick 115 CTI this year. The other options you have out there that are pretty distinct is you have the Salomon QST 106 and the Salomon QST Blank. I like the Salomon QST 106. I've definitely changed my opinion on it after having more miles on it, but it is still a top tier ski. The Salomon QST 106 kind of lets you sit in that turn very comfortably and feels the closest to, if you've ever snowboarded, kind of how snowboards come through the powder line. I would say the Salomon QST 106 comes the closest to that snowboarding feeling. The Salomon QST 106, as I skied on them more, I did find that the tips like to kind of wander into each other. They are also a little bit heavier and a little bit less forgiving than an Atomic Bent. Not heavy necessarily like on the stat sheet, but just they don't allow you to kind of renegotiate your turn as easily. You're kind of locked in more, but that can be rewarding in its own way. The Salomon QST Blank is a little bit less distinct than the 106. It is definitely giving you more flotation, but I found that it was a lot on my hips, a lot on my knees. I just did not feel like, maybe I'm just not experienced enough, but I felt like I really, after 3 or 4 hours of skiing on the QST Blank, had a lot of discomfort, and it was a lot of ski to maneuver. The QST Blank was not as much of a standout in my opinion. You've also got the Rossignol Sender 110 Free, which I skied on, and I think for big open lines was damp enough that you like didn't kind of get bucked around, but also floated well. It also felt like I could get through the turns really smoothly. I like the Sender 110 Free, but I think it just depends on where you're taking it. If the lines are more open, you've got kind of a big open face, I like the Sender 110 Free, but as you have to negotiate brush and bramble, depending on where you ski or what gets tracked out, for me, powder skiing, I have to kind of negotiate and find those lines. Getting to those lines is a little bit more difficult in the 110 Free, but if you've got big open lines, I don't think that'll be a problem for you. Another ski that's fairly similar to the Salomon QST 106, but not having the tips run into each other as much, but also not kind of being on the tails and as smooth as the QST 106, is the renowned Citadel 107. I feel like that ski was so easy to kind of negotiate the turns. The kind of downhill trajectory was nice and smooth. I like the renowned Citadel 107 for that as well. And then as far as like a very easy to negotiate lightweight powder ski, you had the Headcore 105, but those are changing, so I don't want to talk about them too much with that being updated, but I did like that Headcore 105. And the big standout for me last season, my powder ski that I was just blown away by, was the DPS Kaizen 112. Again, that is a premium brand like Stokely, so they are not cheap, but my God, one, you're getting a lot of that same performance that you're getting out of an Atomic Bent 120, or that you are getting out of a Bent 110, or a Salomon QST, but it is so much easier on your hips and knees. It also has such an aggressive splay that it is so easy to negotiate those. The carbon feels so smooth, so when you get that good kind of on snow powder feeling, you are getting just that in aces with that DPS Kaizen 112. That to me is probably the best powder ski I've ever put on my foot, but it is, with that carbon, if you run into any firm snow, you're gonna get bucked around. It is not giving you any kind of carving shape if you do not have powder, really. But for a dedicated powder ski, the ski that felt the smoothest on snow and the easiest to kind of negotiate with my hips and knees was that DPS Kaizen 112. I'd say also like the Bent 120 is pretty easy on your legs, but you definitely start to feel it after 5 or 6 hours. The DPS Kaizen 112 is the only powder ski where I felt absolutely nothing the whole way through on it. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal powder ski. There are also some pretty cool skis as far as like more of a freestyle, sendy down the like fall line with the Black Crow's Atris and the Black Crow's Anima. The Black Crow's Atris, I would say, if you like I'm gonna take a really aggressive line and see what I can get away with, that Black Crow's Atris is definitely a phenomenal option. The Black Crow's Anima, I felt like, oh my God, those are beefy. That is a lot of ski. But if you were in a big line and you wanted a stable option, those are great. But the standout for like resort powder skiers to me is that DPS Kaizen 112, Atomic Bent 120, and Salomon QST 106. What I have access to for powder skis is somewhat limited, but those are my very real, very raw thoughts. The last category I'm going to talk about very briefly is the Crud Cutter ski. These are skis that are good for spring snow conditions that kind of cut through bad choppy snow, that are damp and powerful. There's really two main ones that kind of stick out to me, and they are probably, you know, neck and neck with each other. They just are serving different ski styles. My favorite personal one is the Vocal M7 Mantra. I just find myself reaching for it. With the new M7, I feel like there's way more adjustability with your turn shape. It's got more versatility. It's a little bit more under the foot with its turn, similar to the Mantra 88, so that's why I prefer it. And the Nordica Enforcer 99, which was updated in 2025. Both of those were updated in 2025. The Nordic Enforcer is a little bit more like you like to finish your turn right on the tails and kind of power through. When they updated that, they made it give you much more energy in and out of the turns. The turn initiation is more accessible. Both are awesome options, just for very different ski styles. And the other kind of Crud Cutter that is dipping into that category, I would say the Stokely Stormrider 88 does very well, and the 95 does very well for bad snow conditions. So take that for what it's worth. That's kind of the premium brand and does it pretty well, but I would say it's a little bit more focused on being a daily driver. But I'd say they're just kind of on the edge of that parameter. But as far as Crud Cutter goes, I was blown away by both the Vocal M7 Mantra and Nordic Enforcer. It just depends on your ski style and where you like your turn to kind of initiate and where you like the power out of the turn when you're releasing that turn. If it's right at the tail and you like kind of being more on the back end of that turn, Nordic Enforcer 99 is an awesome ski. I enjoyed it a lot. But if you like to have it a little bit more underfoot, that Vocal M7 Mantra is very distinct and the ski I found myself reaching for at the end of the year more than any other ski out there. The other Crud Cutter option you've got is the K2 Mindbender 99 Ti that I reviewed. I like those a lot. Zach has a pair of those. I will say that those are made in China, and I have seen mixed results as far as K2's durability and build quality. I know Zach had a pair that he had sent in, but the warranty did cover them. So your mileage may vary, but I do like those K2 Mindbender 99 Ti's for a Crud Cutter. I just don't tend to recommend them as much due to some of my concerns with the build quality and durability. They perform well, they're nice skis, and they are a decent option in that category, but just something to think about. Now, my big advice when picking a ski to buy, if you're looking for this, is to do a couple of things. Take a step back and figure out what you really want the ski to do. Now, if you're somebody who is only skiing 10 days a year, maybe you really do want something that is like a travel ski and is gonna do a lot of different things. Maybe not super well, but will do a lot of things. And that is kind of why I have that like travel safe bet ski like a Blizzard Rustler 10 or a Black Crow's Justice. There are people who want that. Now, however, if you are somebody who skis a lot, where you are skiing 20 to 30 days, and you are going to want a powder ski and an all mountain ski, or you're kind of shopping, don't try to have one ski do too much, because what I see a lot of people do is they get into it, skis are expensive, so they go, okay, well, I'm just gonna buy an Atomic Bent 100 or a Rustler 10, and then they try something else and they go, oh, well, this, you know, Atomic Maverick or Elon Ripstick is carving better than my Blizzard Rustler. What the heck? I want to buy that ski. And then they go, oh, well, these, you know, Bent 110s or Salomon QST 106s are so much better in the powder than my Rustler 10s. I'll buy these skis. And then you end up with 3 pairs of skis instead of 2, or you end up frustrated that your do-it-all ski isn't doing everything as well. So, like, be really honest with what you want the ski to do, and that's why I've tried to create these categories for you, so you can kind of try to, like, filter things through which category you really need. And then 2, when you finally get into that category, figure out what features are really important to you. Is dampness a priority to you? Then something like a Vocal M7 Mantra is going to really fit that need. Is light amount of powder performance, maybe the Atomic Maverick is giving you a little bit of range there. Is turn initiation being easy important to you? Is doing the turn initiation yourself important to you? Write down what features you really care about in that ski. Is it sharp turns? Is it smooth, fast, open radius turns? What matters to you? And write them down on a piece of paper before you start shopping, so that way you're not just looking at a cool graphic and then you go, oh, well, I can make that work. Pick a list of features that are priorities to you and then shop that way. And I feel like doing that will help you a ton when you're out there buying skis, and you can kind of stick to what you care about rather than kind of getting whisked away by all of the ski options. It can be so overwhelming. So really pick what your priorities are and then allow the ski to be good at what it does. Everybody is out there making good skis, but their build prioritizes different features over others. All right, part 2, let's talk gear. Now, there were 4 major ski boot makes and models that saw big kind of redesigns. The big one that you saw was the Atomic Remedy 130, which I actually have in hand. Thank you to everyone who filled out the survey on Instagram telling me what they're interested in. That helped me a ton. And I'm now in the process of breaking these in. Maybe I'll do a first impression video, but I have a lot to say. The Remedy 130 is an interesting boot because doesn't feel initially that different from the Hawk series, but it is meant to be a bit of a more aggressive boot, almost like a beer league race boot, so to speak. It's interesting to market a ski boot as a race boot because race boots are not comfortable, so I think anyone who's raced tries to steer clear of them these days. We'll go more into that later, but this is a big update from Atomic this year. You also have the new Armada AR1 boot, which is meant to kind of hold the foot in differently. I believe it's more focused on freestyle skiers. At least that's my understanding from some of their marketing. We also this year are getting a new Nordica speed machine and a new revised Technica Mach 1 series. So some exciting changes to some of the BOA models. All in all, I'm always a little skeptical of ski boot changes. While there are some exciting things going on, ski boot performance, a large portion of it is based around fit. So as always, if a ski boot fits you better, give that priority over kind of a new design, if that makes any sense. A couple years ago, we got the Lang Shadow series, and that was very hyped. And I did get a chance not to put them on snow, but to like just test a pair in the shop. And you know, you can feel a little bit out just from flexing them. They felt fine. They didn't feel like anything that crazy to me. Again, I can't really speak to that because I haven't had a chance to put them on snow, but always be a little bit skeptical of new boot designs. Now, if a new boot model or a boot change comes along and it just makes a boot fit your foot that it never did before, awesome, that's great. But always be a little bit skeptical of new boot designs. The research and development for ski boots alone to like make a model takes a ton of time and research, and sometimes being kind of the guinea pig or on the bleeding edge, well, can be painful. You know, my thoughts on ski boots, honestly, maybe this just comes from running shoes and years of dealing with that, but my big thought with ski boots for consumers is, you know, if I'm giving you buying advice, if it's not broke, don't mess with it. If you have a ski boot that fits well, that breaks in well, stick with it and don't mess with it if you don't have to. If you are unhappy, yeah, go to a boot fitter, make sure it fits right. My other advice is that, you know, I'm gonna talk about a liners buyer guide, that'll be in the next section, but these are awesome. I love the aftermarket boot liners. I like the Zip Fits, I like the Intuition liners, I think they're awesome. One thing I see though is people not getting a properly fitting boot and then trying to get the aftermarket liner to fix a bad fit. You need to get this fit dialed in first, make sure that everything kind of OEM works properly for you. Do not rely on Zip Fit to fix problems after the fact. Zip Fit can make a good boot better, but it cannot make a bad boot fit well, if that makes any sense to you. So make sure you get the proper size, right? The length. If you are swimming around in your boot, you are gonna have way more issues getting power out of it. You need the proper flex. If you have experience, you can kind of fit your own boots. I've worked in ski shops for years and can kind of fit my own ski boots, but I would say it's like 10% of skiers that could actually do that competently, you are going to need help from somebody. Now, if you know what you like and you can get last year's color online, I have affiliate links, that's great. But if you are coming at this, with no experience and not knowing what you like, I really recommend going to a proper boot fitter to get the proper ski boot. You wanna make sure the length is right. I think, my rule of thumb when I'm fitting my kids or myself is 2 fingers behind the heel if you just put it in the shell. You also wanna make sure that your flex is proper, that your knees aren't going totally over the toes. Be careful with ski boots that feel awesome in a warm shop. A warm ski shop is not the same as a cold ski hill, so keep that in mind. And that being said, this is probably your most important piece of gear. Take the time to do it properly. Don't just give yourself a half an hour after work one day. It is a few hour process sometimes to get a proper fitting ski boot, but there's nothing better. There's a lot of really exciting options out there right now. You have ski boots that have BOA, some that don't. My opinion on BOA is if it works for you, great. I personally don't like the fit of it. I don't like not being able to customize each zone, especially throughout the day. Sometimes this one right here, I like to have a little bit more lockdown, but I don't necessarily think it's a gimmick either. I think for some people, it's allowing them to get it tightened down. Maybe if you have arthritis, if you're working with someone with a disability, like my son, I could see as he gets older using that BOA and have it being an awesome option, but it's not for everyone. So don't assume just because it has BOA, it's a better option. The other thing I see a lot of consumers doing when people ask me about this is they will find backcountry ski boots for sale, right? The touring option where you've got that little clip on the heel, and they will get that because it's cheaper. Don't buy touring boots if you're not actually going to tour. In my opinion, having that moving part is just one more point of failure. If you're not gonna use it and you don't need it, don't buy it. Again, it's one of those things where you see that it's more expensive. Well, I like the option for touring, maybe I'll get into it. No, if you're not already touring, don't waste your money. And also, I found that the flex between touring and non-touring is different, especially with the Atomic boots. So if you think, oh, this works for me, I'll just get the touring version. I found that that's not even true. Don't just go for features if they don't create a better fit for your boot. In my opinion, if you're in the US and you are a resort skier, just get a resort boot. Getting the touring is almost never gonna happen, or if you're not like trained in avalanche training, touring is just something that I don't mess with. Now, if you're experienced and you wanna do that, awesome, get the right tool for the job. But I think a lot of people get touring boots saying, oh, well, I'd like to walk to the bus shuttle and have that be more comfortable. It's really not worth that added piece. It's one more point of failure, and it doesn't create as good of a fit in my opinion. And I don't know, because the flex gets off, if you're not really touring, in my opinion, don't mess with it. The other thing I'll say for ski boots, and then we'll kind of get into the next section for liners. I don't know what it is. This is a premium Atomic Remedy 130, right? So at least you don't have this little thing that you have to drill out anymore. At least I'll be able to kind of ratchet it out. But ski boot manufacturers have not figured out how to do this power strap. I have yet to see an OEM power strap that does not suck. If you want a very easy way to get better performance out of your boots and get something that can upgrade your ski boot, go and buy, I think they're 60 bucks online. Go and buy a booster strap. That is the easiest way to get better performance out of your boot. I know it seems silly, it seems like a gimmick. If you just weren't that familiar with the sport, being on the outside looking in, it looks like a gimmick. It is not. The booster strap is one of the best upgrades you could put to your boot. And it's a pain to get this out. At my local ski shop, I was talking to them. If some of the shops, you can ask them if you buy a booster strap, they'll do the installation for free, so I can save you a headache. But I absolutely, absolutely recommend if you are buying a ski boot, get this booster strap on. And also if you are buying new ski boots, start wearing them now. Start packing them out now. You can do the heat molding. I've got full videos on that. But in my opinion, in talking to some of the Zip Fit guys and some of the people over Atomic, the best way to get a boot broken in is just by wearing it. So in my opinion, if you get a new pair of boots, wear them around. Don't wait till day one to get them to kind of pack out and really bang up your shins and hurt your feet. Wear them around the house now. You can do the heat molding, or have a professional do the heat molding, and that does help expedite that. But if you want to be optimal, do the heat molding and then wear them around the house. But please, for the love of God, if you want to save yourself a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, start wearing your ski boots now to get them packed out and broken in. This foam is really thick, it packs out. The other thing too, if you find that with specifically Atomic boots, but if you feel like your shin doesn't feel like it's in the right spot, try the spoilers that come with it. I've had a handful of boots where putting a spoiler right here and having the boot a little bit more forward, one, felt more comfortable for carving, and two, improved the performance. However, with the zip fits, I find that I don't need the spoiler, so test it out, see what feels right, and do it in the comfort of your own home rather than at a crowded lodge or in the cold. As far as who's making nice boots right now, I mean, everybody is kind of making nice stuff. I don't think anyone sets out to make a bad ski boot. So really it just comes down to your preference and the fit. Some of the ski boots that I've experienced that I feel like are doing a really good job, Atomic, for my type of foot, seems to be doing a really good job. The value, what you're getting in the box, my experience with them has been phenomenal. I even had a part where the plastic was rubbing together when it got clamped down improperly. They warrantied it, so I've had really good experience there. Lang, I skied on Lang ski boots for almost 20 to 30 years. Was nothing but happy with those. I have found that depending on the year, they don't always put their stuff on sale, and that can be frustrating, but again, I think that's kind of changed year to year. I do feel like the Lang is kind of, everything comes in waves. I feel like their LX that I was in, I think I had like an LX 120. It felt a little long in the tooth compared to the modern Atomic ski boots, but that always comes like in different years, and I still think Lang makes a phenomenal boot. They have historically. I just feel like in the last couple of years, Atomic has finally caught up with them. When I was testing ski boots, I was also really pleasantly surprised with some of the offerings from K2, although it does look like a lot of their lines now are moving exclusively to BOA. It's harder and harder to find K2 ski boots without BOA. But I was surprised. I mean, the price and the comfort was pretty good. The flex definitely seems to run a little bit softer than normal, but you know, that's to be expected. They've never fit my foot, but I was really impressed with the build quality of Technica ski boots. They just felt very premium. Everything felt good. I just don't have the right foot for it. And Salomon ski boots seem to be doing a good job. Again, my foot seems to be too tall. I've got too much arch to make it work. But again, the build quality and just how everything felt around my foot felt phenomenal. I know Nordica's got a great reputation for their ski boots. So again, you can feel pretty safe. Just kind of go into it blind. Don't worry about brand X, Y versus Z. If you don't know anything about what tends to fit, don't worry about it. Go in, try as much as you can comfortably, kind of figure out your width, figure out approximately the flex, figure out the sizing, you wanna get that kind of dialed in, and then work your way from there. But don't be brand loyal, right? If you've got, Salomon skis, you don't have to have Salomon ski boots. Go in, try stuff on, but just about everyone is making really nice stuff. The other ski boot that has really impressed me is Fisher. I think integrating those zip fits directly is such a good idea because it's an all-in-one package. It also brings the price down. It's really brutal to buy a $700 boot and then a $500 liner. Getting $1,000 for both makes a ton of sense. I don't know how many consumers want to swallow that pill or know that they would like the zip fit. I think the problem is when you look at consumers, it has to be somebody who fits a Fisher foot, also wants the premium zip fit and knows they want it, and are willing to pay that kind of top dollar price. For really avid skiers and for people who are gonna use it, it's a great value. It's great to have it, like, I know this, that's a problem. Sometimes with zip fit or any of these aftermarket liners, it's like, oh, will this liner fit this boot? For instance, I am testing out these Remedies. My zip fit liner does not fit in it because of the width. Having the peace of mind as a consumer, knowing that it will all kind of work together in one package, I think is awesome. I would love to see more ski boot brands doing it, but I do kind of understand how it could scare away the average consumer, whereas people who are getting a lot of mileage and know they want zip fit, they'll make it work. But I would love to see more brands integrating that zip fit, especially in more performance or premium boots, at least as they're advertised, like the Remedy. A zip fit liner would have made a lot of sense in a boot like this. So shout out to Fisher. I think that was a very cool design, and I'm excited to see maybe more people integrate it. All right, now let's talk ski boot liners. Now, for ski boot liners, you have a few different options, and we'll kind of go through them. You have the zip fit liner, you have intuition liners, and then you have just these stock base liners from the ski boots. Now, What you get really depends on what kind of user you are. Now let's start at the top with the power user product. If you are an absolute power user, and I mean like 30+ days per winter on your feet and you're getting a ton of mileage, I have yet to find a product that gives me a better fit than the ZipFit. It created such a comfortable fit. It gave me an added performance of having a snugger fit around my foot. There's less kind of play back and forth. I also felt like the boots became more responsive with carving, and it eliminated pain on the side of my feet that I experienced for my entire life. Like I just assumed wearing a ski boot when I ski in the woods or moguls, I would always have pain on the sides of my feet. This is the first product that's ever eliminated it. But it is not for a low volume day skier. A lot of its value isn't even seen until you really kind of break them in. These just to break in, take like 3 to 5 days of use. They're also about $500 per pair of liners, which is about the same as I pay for boots when I get them in the off season. So you really have to get a lot of miles to get the value out of these. That being said, they do hold up well as far as I've heard. I've put about 60, 70 days on this pair, and I've found that they held up well. I've seen people saying that they've been able to keep them and carry them over onto shells of new boots, that these will last a long time. So you do kind of get your value back that way. If you're looking for the best fit and just the most comfortable fit for a liner, this is a great product. But there are a few drawbacks. One, like I said, they take a while to break in. It's pretty you gotta put time into getting them broken in. But two, it adds time to putting your boots on every time. You can do it one of two ways. You can put it on your foot, tighten it up, and then put it in the shell, which just takes extra time. I leave these in the shell and then just kind of make sure that this pull string is accessible, and then I tighten it that way. But then you have to kind of wrap up the laces. The time to get into your ski boot does increase, so there's that. If you're not skiing that often, I really don't think you're getting the proper value out of it. And like I said, they're not cheap. But that being said, they do last a long time. The fit and feel is phenomenal, but there's a couple of drawbacks. It will take extra time and they aren't cheap. But if you're looking for the best fit, I've yet to find a product that does it better than ZipFit. Going down from the ZipFits at $500 to $550, depending on where you buy them from. You then have the Intuition liners. You can get those for around $225 at Evo, $250 depending on what model. I found that the Intuition liner is much easier to access the pull string. You're able to get in them easier. They also have a very nice process for figuring out the exact fit for the exact boot. I feel like if you are just somebody who out of the box isn't working with a boot fitter to get these liners going, they are so much easier to kind of figure out on their website what the right fit is for your foot. The other upside with the ZipFit liners is it's much easier to get that drawstring in and get your foot in. It's much less involved kind of getting the right fit once you've got it locked into your boot. They don't completely eliminate that side to side pain that I get when I ski in the moguls and the trees, but they did improve it, and they definitely give you more performance out of your ski boot than just the stock liners. Like I said, the drawstring is also easier to access. They're not as difficult to get into your boots initially, or you can kind of keep them there. And just that zipper, again, is so easy to kind of pull up, and it's not as intrusive as some of the ZipFit stuff. They also have home kits for like getting that heat molding fit to your foot, whereas ZipFit feels a little bit more DIY, or you just need a professional. The Intuition is very you can book it online, get the heat molding kit, do everything at home. It's much more friendly to people who aren't as experienced with ski boots. They're also, the price is almost half the price of the ZipFit liners, so there's that. If you are not skiing 50 days a year and you're only skiing 20, that might make more sense for cost value for you. I think it's an awesome option. I feel like it is improving the ski boot fit for people while also making it so it's just more accessible. You don't have to spend so much time if you're not going skiing as often. They're much easier out of the box to kind of get to fit into your ski boot, and a little bit more user-friendly, but you are not getting the total premium fit that you're getting from ZipFit. There's trades, there's pluses and minuses, but I think for somebody who's skiing not hitting the 30 to 50 to 60 days a year and is closer to the 20, you might be getting a better bang for your buck, just because out of the box they're much easier to kind of put on and get dialed in. So pluses and minuses, there's different costs. And then finally, if you're looking to improve your ski boot experience, right? And like I said in the beginning, you got this thing dialed in and now you're looking to improve your foot experience. If it was me and I had $120 to improve my ski boots and I wanted to improve them and I am not going with the full zip fit, the other option you have is you get your stock liner, you play with, you know, like I said before, you play with these spoilers, see if that improves it. But the other thing I found, or started doing this year, I just take some of these footbeds, and you have to make sure that they're the right kind. I find that the low-rise ones tend to work a little bit better with my arch. You can get them from Remind. Insoles makes a really nice one. I also found that the sole cork ones work pretty well. It just depends on what your foot type is. But getting an aftermarket footbed improved my experience so much more. And the Remind and sole ones start at around $60, depending on which brand you go with. That was such a huge improvement. And if I took that and then I took another $60 and got the booster strap, if I had $120, it's not gonna get you all the way to a zip fit or all the way to an intuition liner, but my God, it gets you a lot farther than you'd expect. If you are just balling on a budget and you wanna improve your liners, that's how I would do it. I would go out and get a $60 footbed. Remind has a couple of them. I think I have the Bent Chetler ones in my other ski boots. And I would get that booster strap to improve that cusp area. It's like the recoil is so much better, the flex is so much better. I would get a booster strap and a footbed, and for $120, you can improve your stock liners by quite a bit. Now, again, it's not getting you all the way to intuition, it's not even getting you anywhere near zip fit, but like performance per dollar, that is probably the best way to do it. Again, this is a buyer's guide. I hope this is helpful for you guys. Now let's talk ski jackets. I'm gonna keep this one pretty brief because there are a ton of jacket brands out there and there's people who like one thing and it works, that's awesome. In my experience, there are brands that I've liked, but they've been acquired or they've changed over the years. I'm gonna talk about the top tier ones and then maybe I'll talk about a couple of other options. Long story short, for jackets, there are a few different options. Things you wanna look for if you are buying a jacket, or things that I really prioritize, is ventilation. You wanna make sure that you are getting airflow in and out, because if you start to overheat and you sweat, then when you get cold on the chair, it's gonna freeze. Or if you aren't getting proper coverage and you have wind exposure, that's when you can see things like frostbite. In my opinion, the ventilation is something I prioritize. The cut and what part of my body it covers is important to me. And two, there are different types. You see 2L, 3L jackets. Those stand for how many layers you need for that jacket. I tend to prioritize shells and then getting a good fleece because it allows me to adjust how many layers I have to that specific day. I know that the jackets with the built-in insulation tend to be cheaper, or they appear cheaper, but in my experience, they end up not working for, like a third of the days. So the value really isn't there to me. What I would do is I would go out and buy a nice shell. You don't have to buy it new necessarily. They have a ton of these high-end products, sell their own products used. But get a nice quality shell, and then it's pretty easy to find affordable fleeces and base layers to kind of layer underneath that. It may depend on your climate and where you are, but for skiing in Idaho, that's how I do it. As far as the top jacket brands that I found last year in my jacket testing, where I tested, I think 4 or 5 different brands. If you're looking for best material, the jacket that keeps moisture out, that has just the nicest material for allowing breathability, but also keeping moisture off of you, in my opinion, Arc'teryx is making the nicest product there. That is easily the nicest material out there for keeping moisture off of you while also having breathability. I think Arc'teryx is top of the game when it comes to material. But when it comes to cut and functionality, I prefer Mammut myself personally because the material is like 95% of the way to the same quality as Arc'teryx. But Arc'teryx is missing some very basic stuff like softer interior. It's just got this little tiny 1-inch square, whereas Mammut is all around you because, again, skiers care about that. They also, like Arc'teryx doesn't have, in the jacket I tested, the Sabre SV, severe weather one. It didn't have a pass holder in the arm. That is so nice for skiers to just wave your arm and not have to bang your knees off the RFID reader. It also has a ton of things for pockets on the interior that are better, while having all of this functionality for what a day-to-day skier would care about. I personally use the Mammut Haldragat. I got this used and have been amazed by the build quality of it. I will say, admittedly, Arc'teryx, the material is a little bit nicer, but I think for cut, functionality, quality of life features, Mammut is doing that miles ahead of Arc'teryx. And so I personally prefer that brand, especially like traveling with this jacket. I was really happy. It's been more than adequate for keeping all the rain and everything off of me. I can admit the Arc'teryx is better, but I never ran into a situation where the Mammut Haldregat was overwhelmed. So in my opinion right now, personally, my top pick is Mammut, but prioritize what you need to prioritize. If you are like a backcountry person or you get really severe weather where you are, maybe the Arc'teryx makes more sense for you. I also feel like the price differences with Mammut, I tend to see the prices be a little bit more fair with Mammut. But again, your mileage may vary, but I use the Mammut Haldregat, and then I also use their snow pants, which I'm super happy with. So that's been kind of my go-to, with ventilation being really nice, with everything being premium. If I was going bang for your buck though, the bang for your buck option, in my opinion, is that Patagonia. I believe the one I tried was the Storm Rider. You get so much jacket for your money, and you also can get it repaired. They have a really great repair program. I mean, Arc'teryx and I believe Mammut might have one, I'm not sure. But they have that, but Patagonia, you are getting that for quite a lot less cost than the Arc'teryx. It also, like, functionality, it has a ton of quality of life features. I did feel that the material isn't quite as premium as Arc'teryx or Mammut, but what you are getting for your dollar, bang for your buck, my pick for somebody who's just trying to get the most out of their dollar would be that Patagonia jacket. You're getting good quality, you're getting a brand that stands behind their stuff. I just find for me, for quality of life stuff, and maybe I got it used so that kind of balanced it out with the Patagonia cost, but for me right now, Mammut has made my preferred jacket, but if I was recommending to a friend and they're just getting into it and they're trying to keep their costs down, Patagonia would probably be my go-to recommendation. Helly Hansen makes nice stuff. I just haven't tested in a while. There's plenty of other good brands from there, but those are my top picks from last year that I tested. These sections are gonna get more and more brief. For base layer guide, right now I love Smartwool for socks. They just have been the undefeated champion. I have yet to find a better ski sock out there than Smartwool. I've tried other brands. I tried Darn Tough and was really underwhelmed by their products. I've had Eurosock in the past, and maybe I need to branch out more, but right now my top pick is easily Smartwool. For the base layers, for like the legs specifically, right now my top pick has been those Icebreaker base layers around the legs. They are so comfortable, so soft. They are maintaining heat well. They're also like breathable. I was blown away by the Icebreaker pants. Now they're not giving them away, but they are phenomenal. If you're looking for a sporty like knee support base layer, I was running CWX for almost 20 years, and I tried a new pair and they are still really made well. It's hard to tell, I'm not a doctor, but I've always felt like I appreciated on a long day of skiing or skiing off trail, that CWX, it's basically got like kinesio tape that goes around your knees. I felt like it was supportive. That's just my firsthand experience, but I also had my wife and Zach test them, and they echoed the same feeling, that if you are going for a long workout, you don't notice it at first, but at the end, it's nice to have a little bit of extra support throughout the day. Mileage may vary on the kinesio tape, but as far as like performance and durability and warmth, those CWX are phenomenal. But it depends. If you're looking for breathability and it's a warm day, I would personally move more towards Icebreaker. I also really like the Patagonia Capilene base layers for leggings. I do find that synthetic material doesn't breathe as well, so it can be a little bit more stifling, but they are super warm, and definitely, again, bang for your buck with Patagonia. You are getting a lot of base layer for your money. The tops for base layers, I was using the Patagonia Capilene, the one I did for our channel people that order those. I ran Patagonia, some of the Mammut tops I tested and was really happy with. But one of the standout ones for me, I have been testing recently the Ibex base layers, and they have been so comfortable, so warm. I like the fit of the Ibex tops. So I gotta test them a little bit more in winter conditions, like on the hill, but like just wearing them in the morning when it's cold, I have been so happy with the softness, with the warmth on cold days, and also just like the fit and feel of Ibex. I'm really excited to try those out on the hill, but as far as like early mornings in the fall when it's cold, I really am finding myself more and more reaching for that Ibex top. So your mileage may vary. Again, I like those other brands as well, but the Ibex has been just a surprising top layer for me that I'm really happy with. Next, buyer's guide for Goggle. I mean, this will all be subjective to the fit of your face and everything.
For the fit and designs, I like the innovation that I see from POC every year. They make really cool frames. There's stuff that's more breathable or where it rests on your cheekbones rather than like directly on your eyes. I like POC a lot for that design and for getting a proper fit to your helmet. And then as far as like ventilation, I tested some Zeal goggles and I feel like they do the best for like in the woods, keeping that moisture out and ventilating them. I was really blown away by that design, although I was not as crazy about their lenses. But the Oakley lenses, in my experience, just completely blow both brands out of the water for testing that. I really, really like the colors and the comfort of the lenses. You know, I've tried the Sapphire Prism, I tried the pink one, the blue one. I really, really feel like Oakley is absolutely killing it with the quality of their lenses. For me, it's kind of the most important part because, you know, I find on low light days, I get a little bit of vertigo. I also, you know, find myself really needing that contrast in a storm. I have yet to find a better lens than the Oakley. And while the fit isn't always perfect with my POC helmet, I have yet to find a better goggle for me personally with that lens specifically. So right now, I think Oakley is making phenomenal goggles. There's a reason that you see them everywhere and they are kind of expensive, but the lens alone, in my opinion, makes it worth it. Now, if you are looking for proper fit and you're gonna prioritize it that way, or ventilation, those two other brands are making good products. I also have heard great things about Smith. I have not tested them yet, but I will be testing them this year. But as of right now, as far as what I like personally, if I'm recommending goggles, get POC if you need the right fit, or if there's something specific that really works better for you. But if you're looking for lenses, I think Oakley is absolutely the way to go. Just take your time and make sure it fits your helmet. I know it feels silly going to a ski shop with a helmet, but take the time to make sure that the fit is proper. And if you can get around that, you're getting awesome lenses. All right, next let's talk helmets. You know, I personally trust my life with POC. I've witnessed my friends getting big crashes where they completely snapped the POC spinal protector. I've seen POC like send new helmets when something got broken. I've a personal experience where I got in a crash and they gave me a discount on my next helmet. I really like POC stuff. I think if you are looking for a good helmet right now, there are a ton of good options out there. I think there are a lot of really nice helmets out there. I've just kind of found one that I liked and stuck with it. And this is something I don't really want to, like, I don't tend to vary too much. But I think most helmets, what I would look for as a buyer right now is look for a helmet that has MIPS. That's essentially a technology that's helping prevent brain rotation inside of the skull. And then I would also look, if you are a heavy user or somebody goes in the trees and it's getting kind of those light whacks with the branches, look for a multi-impact helmet. MIPS is not the same as multi-impact, even though the acronyms kind of look similar. Multi-impact will allow it so it doesn't degrade with small little impacts. And that's really, I mean, it tends to be more expensive, but if you are a power user, that's a feature that I personally look for. But get a reliable brand with MIPS and make sure that it fits properly and take it from there. Now from a mitten buyer's guide's perspective, there's three main options that I really like right now. You have the level mittens, gloves, however you want to say it. And I like these specifically for durability. I mean, you just look at the rubber, you look at the fit. I've had my brother specifically who had these racing and he is so hard on his gear. We're talking mittens and gloves all the time. These tend to hold up the best, I feel like, for durability. Now they're rough, definitely. You've got that hard rubber. It feels like there's almost like a car tire on the side of it. But for durability and how, like when you drag your knuckles or if you're really hard on your gear, I prefer these. They also have this little like massager that's supposed to help blood flow. I'm not sure how effective it is, but take that for what it's worth. For fit and feel, I always feel like Roosh, maybe it's just my hand, has always fit the best. I like the Roosh, however you want to say it. I think they've done a really good job making a mitten or glove that just feels good wrapped around your hand. I wouldn't say they're the most durable though. I've typically found stitching issues around this joint, but again, that's, older models, hard to say. I have yet to have an issue with these. And if you take care of these, I've had a pair that I got from 2007, so they're going on 20 years old, and they still hold up and work well, especially if you just take care of them and store them properly. I like the Roosh fit though. I like the premium feel. I feel like around my hand, this feels the snuggest and most secure. But my go-to over the year has been these leaky mittens. I really love these. I think that as far as warmth goes, I've been the most impressed with leaky mittens between the, backcountry version that I have the big powder mitt, or even just like the gloves, other than the spring gloves, obviously, which are not meant to be warm. But these are some of the warmest race mittens that I've ever tried. And I really noticed the attention to detail here with like kind of having loft around the edges to give you a warmer fit. When I have friends that come with me and they have cold hands, I often loan them my leaky mittens. But the thing that really stands out to me is this trigger system. If you have the pull for it, having the integrated trigger system is great. You know, you can put any leaky trigger like strap around any mitten, but the fully integrated product is a much better feeling than the strap. The strap works fine, but it can twist a little bit. It can be awkward to have it around your mitten. Having this integrated and having that trigger system, for me personally, has made it so that I'm somebody who's like got a really tense grip when I ski, and it can make it so my shoulders get kind of locked up while I'm carving. This allows me to just keep a nice open hand and power through the turn. I also would love to like get my kids set up in a pair of these because they're always losing their straps and I'm always like having to go and find their pole that came off, you know, 10 feet up the hill. I like the trigger system. Make sure you like it. It may not be for everyone, so maybe go and try these out. Typically, I would just run ruche gloves all the time. Personally, I really, really love the leaky mittens, the build quality, the warmth, and the trigger system is awesome. But again, if you need durability or that fit of the ruche, go with those other options. Hestra also has made really nice stuff. I haven't owned a pair in a really long time, like a decade or two. I did find that they were really warm and really comfortable. I had a couple issues with the gloves wearing out around the top finger area. Again, it could have been that lobster model that I had, but the nice thing that we're seeing going into this year is that we should be seeing Hestra mittens with leaky trigger systems, so some nice alternatives out there for you. Now, pull guide, there are a lot of pulls out there. I think if you are a resort skier, you don't really need those big, long, tall pulls. I tested a pair from Black Crows and I like them. They were nice, especially for powder days, because you can adjust your stance based on where you are, if you're in the woods or if you're in big open terrain. But I'd say for the average resort skier, it's probably overkill. I find myself, like I said, using those leaky pulls with the trigger system. It's just such a nice feeling. But there are a ton of other options if you are looking for something more affordable, or you're just, again, only going 5 to 10 days a year. I find that most people tend to have their ski poles too long. However, like the fit guidelines tends to be a little too high. And then when you go for your pole plant, it pushes you back and then you're in the back seat. So, you know, maybe work with a ski instructor or somebody who's more experienced. But I find that I tend to want my poles, you know, one size down from whatever people recommend in the shop. As far as that goes, though, there are plenty of poles out there. You can get carbon poles for quite a lot less than it used to be. It used to be you had to spend like a couple $100 to get a carbon pole. Obviously, that technology has become much more affordable. Carbon poles are very light. I like a light pole. It just makes it like if you're skiing a lot, so you don't have to like carry a big old metal aluminum pole around. But you know, poles are really not an important piece of equipment. Just get the sizing right and then work from there. But I do find that I like that carbon. I had a pair of Vogel Fantastics that worked pretty well, and I want to say I paid $75 to $90 in the off season. As far as now what I'm using though, like I said, that leaky trigger system is impossible for me to not want to have. On a powder day, I don't use it. I tend to use those backcountry poles. The nice thing about the adjustable backcountry poles that Leaky sent me to test is that I can lower them. So if I'm going in like a deep powder day or in the woods, I like to run them even a little bit lower than I have my carving poles. So that's a nice feature. The baskets are also nice to be able to push through the deep snow. If you've ever like skied with race poles on a powder day, they just sink straight in. That's a nice feature as well. There's lots of options out there, but you know, the biggest thing is just go test the hand grip. If that feels comfortable for you, get that. Get it a little bit lower than you might expect for size. And, you know, test out that trigger system if that's going to work for you. It helped my skiing a ton with just having relaxed upper arms, but it's not totally necessary to the average person. The big thing I would look at is like the right size, and if you can find it in your budget to get a pair of carbon poles, the lighter poles are nice. You know, and I would avoid some of those $15 to $20 poles at Costco because those can break very easily. I would say, you know, if you're spending $50 to $100 in poles, you're gonna find something that is at least solid and gonna hold up over time. So anyway, that concludes the buyer's guide. I will have affiliate links to everything relevant in the videos. I hope this was helpful. I know buying ski gear can be overwhelming. I have been the guy at a ski swap with my kids in a basket who just was like, we're leaving, I'm not doing this. Or been in a ski shop with my kids and been like, you know what, I give up. So don't get overwhelmed. Take it bit by bit. Really prioritize what things are important to you. But I wanted to like kind of talk about where the industry's at right now, my impressions as somebody who tests all of this stuff, who skis a lot and tries a bunch of different gear, and make it accessible to you guys. There are a bunch of buyer's guides out there where they take money or you have to, like, the brands have to pay. I'm not paid by anyone. This is just my honest opinion on skis and gear. So I hope you found it helpful. If you like this kind of content, please consider liking and subscribing. We have channel memberships. We have company Ko-Fi, Venmo. But as always, more than anything, just thanks for taking time out of your day to watch my videos. It means a ton to me. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. See ya.